حتى سبتنا من الأرض.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق فهدى الله به أقواما وأضل عن طريقه الآخرين صلاة الله عليه وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين لهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما. أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أيها المسلمون، إن الدين عند الله الإسلام ومن يبتغي غير الإسلام دينا فلن يقبل منه وهو في الآخرة من الخاسرين. إن الإسلام هو استسلام لله ظاهرا وباطنا بفعل ما أمر به واجتناب ما نهى عنه. أيها المسلمون، إن الشيطان يدعوكم إلى الكسل والتواني عن أوامره ويغريكم ويحثكم على مخالفته ومعصيته. إنه يصور لكم الدين بأنه حبس للحرية وتضييق على الإنسان، يصوره كذلك ليهلككم كما هلك. إن الشيطان لكم عدو فاتخذوه عدوا، إنما يدعو حزبه ليكون من أصحاب السعير. أيها المسلمون، إن الإسلام مبني على 5 أركان: شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا رسول الله، وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة، وصوم رمضان، وحج البيت لمن استطاع إليه سبيلا. وهذه أركان كلها سهلة ويسيرة فشهادة أن لا إله إلا الله توحيد لله وتجريد للقلب من التعله وإبادة لأحد سوى الله، وحصر العبادة لله رب العالمين الذي خلقك فسواك وغذاك بنعمته ورباك، فأنت بالنسبة إلى ربك عبد من عباده. إن كثيرا من الناس إذا اشتغل بطاعة الله فكأنما يصابر الجمرة لا يصبر عليها إلا قليلا. إما إذا اشتغل بالدنيا أقبل عليها بقلبه وفقره وطمأن إليها وهو كامل العبودية للدنيا وناقص العبودية لمولاه. وأما الشهادة أن محمد رسول الله فهي تجريد للمتابعة له دون غيره من المخلوقين، وهو رسول ربك الذي كلف برسالته إليك وكلفت باتباعها، فلنسألن الذين أرسل إليهم ولنسألن المرسلين. أما الصلاة فما أيسرها وأسهلها وما أنفعها للقلب والبطن والفرد والمجتمع، فهي صلة بينك وبين ربك، لا تأتيها إلا وأنت متطهر في ظاهرك وباطنك، فتقوم يدي الله خاشعا خاضعا متقربا إليه بما شرعه لك فيها من ذكر وقراءة وركوع والسجود والقيام وقعود، وتلحق بالصالحين وتنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر، وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر. أما الزكاة فهي جزء بسيط تدفع من مالك لسد حاجة إخوانك وإصلاح مجتمعك، ففيها تزكية المال وتطهير النفس من البخل وتطهير القلب من الذنوب والآثام، فالصدقة تدفع الخطيئة كما يدفع الماء النار. أما الصيام فهو شهر واحد في سنة الشهر يذكر، نعم، هو شهر واحد في سنة، شهر يذكرك بأعظم النعمة من الله عليك، شهر نزول القرآن، شهر رمضان تمتنع فيه في النهار فقط عن الشهوات ونفسك من طعام وشراب والنكاه تقرب إلى ربك. أما الحج وهو قصد بيت الله لإقامة شعائره وتعظيم حرماته، لا يجب في العمر إلا مرة واحدة على المستطيع تهد به الذنوب والخطايا. الحج مبرور ليس له جزاء إلا الجنة. أيها المسلمون، هذه الأصول الإسلام وأركانه عليكم، هل فيها من صعوبة وهل فيها من خلل أو نقص؟ أوليس هي شريعة الله وحكمه؟ فاتقوا الله عباد الله وتمسكوا بدينكم ظاهرا وباطنا، وحذروا أن يصيبكم قول الله تعالى: فلما نسوا ما ذكروا به فتحنا عليهم أبواب كل شيء حتى إذا فرحوا بما أوتوا أخذناهم بغتة فإذا هم مبلسون، فقطع دابر القوم الذين ظلموا، والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم ثبتنا على الإسلام والتوحيد واكتم لنا بخاتمة السعادة وخير يا رب العالمين. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. أما بعد, all praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and may his peace and benediction be upon his noble prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his household, his companions, and all that are rightly guided to the day of accountability.
Quelqu'un va here là et tout match file de et puis au jour et jour et là le parle Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam et ça bi que chien bi que on fait la match file lui mon que ya na au file de que
The theme of today's khutbah is to explain how simple Islam is and how easy to practice Allah has made it.
Nana wajuma ikawa baadamo nichon mleo ni machofile ife jamo ni di Islam hawo ni enehi isa ka hawo ake wonye wofi ni wofi le otumba.
Fellow Muslims, the only deen or religion acceptable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is called Deen al-Islam.
Yeah, the kind of manchofele dianche hawo na wole akasi jamo menu keje adisa adipe jamo ni Islam.
And what Islam means is total submission to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Ni enene esisi tomo pekekedi emo kehe shiba keha manchofele mla.
And these must take a practical shape in our private and public life. As a Muslim, in your private life and your public life, it must be consistent with the values of Islam.
Ni enene wole bele ake anko for my friends and Islam mla akpa.
Allah has enjoined certain acts and has prohibited others. So whatever Allah has enjoined, we do the best we could to observe it. And whatever He has restrained us, we keep away from it.
Ni manchofele mla ekumeyele sawo kefimo ekumehu ekuwo kefimo noni afabo kefimo akefimo ke emijele ni noni manchofele ekubumu bomode ni ogu ohikete.
Fellow Muslims, however, we are facing a very serious challenge, every individual among us. Not today, not yesterday, even from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, those who hearkened to his call and decided to be Muslims, they also face similar challenge. Because sometimes you are being told by Satan that religion is denying your freedom. Islam is denying your freedom. What you want to watch, what you want to do, what you want to drink, what the kind of lifestyle you want to live, Islam has somehow restricted you from doing certain things that you would have wished to do.
Wanyani yalo bala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ibiya amili meni bote jamomi ya natambe amiye amemwa amebote hawo kapi mokajala ni enha ebale akasi ya adesa esusu momiye bebiye edwemo ke shaitan no ekole akasi o jamo na no lo mi ne ona akasi eblabo ke ohi nisani ona teji oto ope loko jamoke kape oto ofe loko jamoke kape oto ya bi akoka ya emi ni jamoko ne ni ene gbo ye wo jomo ko wo tui am.
So you even find your fellow human beings, those who mock you by saying you're not doing those things that the religion has enjoined or prohibited.
Ni ene ha ifio ke ipalakesi meni okeyo islamo ini amele amejamu ha amehigbe na amefio funu family amesumo ene ha de kumeko gbemo ejo amena ba una ka budi ake oya tumoyi akoya oya ja otu ja Hausa una na ka so na gbadu fi loko ike ene ehna efi obo akesi bule obe ege ke hanu loko fi mo ene iwo no ni manjo file ifa bu ke no ni ekubu ekumeye ni oke otu ina.
Satan indeed is our enemy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said and amplified it in various portions of the Quran that Satan is our enemy and we should see him as such and we should equally treat him as such. So he will try to lure us and try to draw our attention to set us that indeed we are enslaved, that we are not slaves.
Ni yabia na iha wana wani akashi mancho fele ni ikakashi hinyalo abonsan nye hinyalo ni jamu ene boko wo ye tualu ni efionya akashi nyafumo nye hi nyele nyebe nye hi no yeli ni nyaba fe ni kwe ikenya nale akashi hinyalo ni isumo kunye simuwe duomo jinoni likahani.
Fellow Muslims, Islam is built on 5 pillars. And these 5 pillars are very simple to practice. If it were to be otherwise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not enjoin upon us because He knows our nature. He knows the benchmark that every human being is given. If He knew we couldn't practice it, He wouldn't have made it obligatory upon us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us 5 pillars of the deen.
Ni kama ijabo efimo imamo akpo enimo ni yabia na jama chofela dia telle akashi neke akpo enimo ne ebi kama wo kama le jamo no hani manchofela ifawo akewo fi keje ni manchofela le akase na mo yeyi akewo domonuno ni wo keja le nko e je ni ko ni manchofela ba fawo ke fi imo.
The 5 pillars, we all know the 5 pillars. Shahadat an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammad Rasulullah. That we should attest in the inner recesses of our heart that indeed Allah is only one and He is the one deserving of our worship. And when we say Allah, we are talking about the Creator who has created every other thing. That He is deserving our worship and He
ni wale egbalo woye ni ya bia na ka di won ka ofie na won ton ofie mo ni bonwo ekasiko le di obo ade wo men e no fe mo ni yo siko no na le di mo ni yo no hiwale ni le pe di mo ni sa akasi wo fe ni woja.
Certainly in our nature is such that if someone did anything good to you, you want to show appreciation. If someone shows some kindness to you, you want to show appreciation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been kind to us and we have to show appreciation. And in showing that appreciation, we assemble 5 times a day to observe Salat. That is showing appreciation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He has given us 24 hours to ourselves. And He's not demanding half of that 24 hours. The time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to assemble and worship Him is just a fraction of the 24 hours. And so, by nature, we all know when someone has shown kindness to you, you want to show appreciation by thanking Him. We thank Allah by coming to the mosque to say Alhamdulillah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what we do 5 times a day.
Yeah, at the time, I see him both. Kaji moko febo ejino. Uboromode akeshi odaleshi. Alo oto ni sheku kahamani mo efe ihabwe. Egama nchofele efe eko ehawo. Baba o jinanu manchofele efe ehawo. Ni manchofele adebo miye ehawo. Be ahu ke ashi numai enyoke edwe imeka numai enyoke edwe be ni mantofele ke ha wole ebibi bio kope ofele baade akeshi wokadomomi ni woka fe shida wo hale ene wole be fio kope ni wona woke ba solomon ni wo ba call mantofele akeshi ijimo aha igbe.
Allah has created us, just as I've said, and provided us with all our needs. We need oxygen and it's readily available. We need water, it's readily available. We need food, it is readily available. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us in the best of form. He didn't put your nostrils where you have your where you have your anus, where you encounter extreme difficulties. If your nostrils or your nose were to be attached to where your anus is, you have difficulties. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designed us in the most perfect manner by making us the way we are. So we have to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and appreciate Him for what He has done for us.
Ehi aka wajaleke anukwale ajake baba o dinoni ifi ihawo ke ibale aka si wona koyo ni wo ba muwe mantofele ike koyo imawo ni ehe wosika kadi ibale aka si nyimai na akakwani na akaya na akaba mantofele ikatewo ehe wo hisika eha wona ni wo nyo wo kaya ni wo keba kadi godiante koma kasi ogugo kadi ogugo na ke echi te o sitamo te o wie mo ko yo te o tobe ni bodi ento ba mu echo dam the ene kadi man to fele e le dromo enhabu o ba na ke si gugo follow po ka ibe o hie o si hile te o sitamo ewa ni ye bi ene kadi o fele fi na ka enhawo the ebi akesani what man to fele si sani what challenge ke anu.
So with these and many others that have not been mentioned, that are the favors of Allah upon our lives, we have every justification to enslave ourselves to Allah. So if someone says we are slaves of our religion, yes, we are slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is rightly so, we are slaves of Allah. And we pride ourselves with the fact that we are slaves of Allah because He created us. You understand? Without us existing, there was no previous existence of ours. He created us. And so He created us for a purpose. He said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. He said, the purpose behind our creation is to come and worship Him. So if that's the reason, and we, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has made it understand that's the reason, and we are forming part of those who are really worshiping Allah, then we should have every reason to say Alhamdulillah.
Imagine what kadi ofele fele na fe ehawo baba o dinoni wo tete iku ni ene nchon akasi kadi ofele efe na ehawo be isa ke hawo akawo jale ankwale ikadi na komempo ape akasi ma ba na fe nya he nyodi nye ha ye jamone jamone etuona do no fe na ke do ha o fe na ke kiamo ke ni sumole na kai adaka noni man to fe le efe e hamiye no ko ko be ni manyani ke dalesi fi akasi matomi he nyon na ha le nonche o fe le.
Now, some people among the free thinkers who want to take recourse in science that there's no basis in science to establish the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we Muslims believe there's more than basis in existence to showcase that indeed Allah created us. We are worshipping in a particular environment now. The environment now is equipped with all that gives us comfort in the particular environment we're talking about. If someone were to tell you that this environment evolved on its own, that person certainly is not saying anything sensible. So for someone to tell us that we just evolved from nothing, we do not evolve from any subconsciousness or from a particular consciousness, then we say that saying is not very consistent. And every attempt made by the scientists to see the product of evolution, there is no empirical evidence in science to establish that. So the belief that we are created of Allah and that we are here to worship Him is in sync with reality than the postulations of evolution.
Then the Uber police and Aja. If I'm getting a pen and jam, but me did not need a jar. If I can now, for Anna Manomi in Tom Akashi Mantopele, Akasan Wafili, Waja, Abuquali. Kadi Evale, Akashi, the Camen, Sister Moha, Akashi, Mamu Waja, no protected. And then what General for Fio, it can make a Taflate, J. Jolly, G. Amen. Akashi, the Kremon Baba, Akashi, Domo Addison Jet, Kulu, Ami, the water, the water, the body was on it can Jane a candibody, a cement of Philip Bowo, Ake Addison, Body was in there, Bonafi, what he affis Senamo, in Hamate.
And I think in the Bible book of Psalm chapter 50 says that it is a fool that says in his mind there's no God. Meaning the one that says in his mind that there's no God is a fool, because he has not really examined what he is, or he has not examined the environment in which he lives. Certainly, if you examine the environment within which you live, and in your very existence, you will really conclude that you were designed and produced by someone. And so our designer and our producer, he is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the one we worship, and he has not made Islam burdensome. He has made it very simple. The first is what we have just been saying now. For you to have in the inner recess of your heart that there was a creator, or there is a creator, and that creator created you for a purpose, and that purpose is for you to come and worship him. That is why you are a Muslim. And if you're a Muslim, Islam requires two things from you: obedience to Allah, what he wants you to do, and also obedience not to do what he doesn't want you to do.
Ena ìwọlọ̀ Kùránì ti nọ nìkẹ́ ó mọ̀ fẹ́ mọ̀ ní òye agẹ́sí ilẹ̀ màjọ̀fílẹ̀ ìyẹ́ tàfílàjẹ́ búùlù dìbò ní ẹnẹ́ ètè nọ ìlẹ́hàn ẹwọ́n náà wọlé agẹ́ kẹ́dí màjọ̀fílẹ̀ ẹbọ̀wọ̀ gàhálẹ̀ ìjámọ̀ bẹ̀sà ní wọ́n náà wọlé agẹ́sí màjọ̀fílẹ̀ ìfẹ́mọ̀wé mọ̀ ẹ̀yọ̀nì kẹ́ ìfẹ́mọ̀ agẹ́sí ẹnẹ́ fẹ́ mọ̀ bẹ̀sà ní ó fi kẹ́ ẹ̀mí ìdílẹ̀ ní nọ́ní màjọ̀fílẹ̀ ẹ̀kùkù rẹ̀ bọ̀wọ́dé ní òkèdè ṣìbàáwó ájú òní kẹ́kẹ́ nàkàndé wọ̀ kẹ́kẹ́ òfin iná yẹ òfilẹ̀ ìwọ̀ ọ̀bẹ òjàmà tó filẹ̀ kẹ́kẹ́ nàkàndé.
Now, given the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us with an innate desire to have a religion, even those who call themselves free thinkers, whenever they are faced with challenges of life, there is an inner yearning for someone to intervene in their life, and that inner yearning is a yearning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So certainly for us to have God that we worship is innate in us, it's our nature. Allah, knowing that he created us with such innate desire, instituted an institution. That institution is through which instrumentality he reached to us. That is the institution of the prophets. He said, Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, Ibrahim, Musa, Jesus, and Muhammad. All of them came with guidance to us. And that guidance is for us to live a life that suits the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is exactly what we are doing in Islam. Today, if you are a Muslim, you are a Muslim because this religion that you practice today was not formulated by a single prophet. Not Muhammad, not Abraham, not Moses, but a collection of all of them that has made Islam what it is today. The Prophet himself sallallahu alaihi wasallam cited this very example. He said, my example and that of the previous prophets is like a mansion, a structure that has been put up, a mansion that has been put up. The mansion is at the point of conclusion, the completion. Anyone that passes by will say, what a magnificent building. By the time this building will be through, it will be the most beautiful mansion in the area. And also Allah says the material with which the building will be concluded, he is that material. He has come as the material with which to conclude the building. In this analogy, it tells us that certainly he did not start it. He didn't start the foundation. He didn't put up the structure, but he was used to complete the structure. So this is to tell us that Islam did not only start with Muhammad. It started by the previous prophets and it was concluded in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So what we want to say in a nutshell is that you cannot practice Islam without the instrumentality of the Prophet, because he is the one that will tell us what is Islam, what Allah wants us to do, and what He doesn't want us to do. So we have to hold on to the Prophet. That's why we say Muhammad Rasulullah. When we say Muhammad Rasulullah, it implies that we will only worship Muhammad, we will only worship God through the teachings that Muhammad has outlined for us. Other than that, we are not worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Ni neka de mona mani ji mani amele ameka amebesu sumoko ye manchofele hie ikaka ji ha motapi mokejira boba ameno amesusu moko ame akasi sale amena wa moko kaje heko ni kaji e bala akasi wa moko jo heko ipa ben wana wale akasi manchofele e wa mo di noni bo ye wo mi ni ha wo fi o mi ne wo kajafo ke nina ikakamo ya ben kole ofile kana kanji boni ejiye ben nomi ejiji wasoni mo no wasoni ode wana wale akashi fimo mona fimo kemashiye je nyanyalo kube timo nyanyalo mene bacha foundation mene bacha wall mene ba wopiles mene ba roof ni balo Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ha wana wale akashi jamo ni di Islam eji jamo ni aprashi chon balo ano sileti na mulo keha wo kwaji jamo na so se mo ni ba han kaji emashin atatu ni mo fe mo ni ho aka akashi na tu ni ye fo meke na tu ni imma efele na amma le fe fo meke ikel leti mo ni ikeneke feune papa na kan tu iwo be Islam egbalo leti mo ni iha efe se iha wo ina iwo wo nyan wo fe Islam ni no ni gbalo Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ifa wo ke fi mo wo ka ke shi wo le wo fi kede na kan ye wo le be je yi wo ta.
Now, in the last 10 or 15 minutes, our attempt is to explain La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. That is that which is required to be in the inner recess of our heart, to believe that none is deserving of our worship except Allah. And we said Muhammad Rasulullah, which meaning we have explained now, that you will never know Allah without passing through the Prophet Muhammad, because he is the mediator between man and God. So whatever you want to know about God, you have to pass through him. Even in the book of the Bible, as it says in the book of John, Jesus Christ said, no one can go to the Father but by him. Meaning, the information that you need by which you can reach the Father can only come through him. So the same position was the position that were enjoyed by the previous prophets. Every prophet stand in a position of relating between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah gives the information and he passes it on to us. So the last of the prophets is the Prophet Muhammad, whose message we are propagating now. So what we are saying is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah is what makes you a Muslim. And believing in this in your heart is what sustains you as a Muslim. Then having established this in the inner recess of your heart, then what follows is the 4 other pillars of Islam, which we are going to explain now.
Muhammadu Rasulullah here, what on here, what bala? They have one hourly. Actually, onye ni ofe Islam, the biami ni noli balo. Actually, ake ikanga wo aka kashi ukachuni. Kama kwa Bible ni Yohane yichwe ewie no o akashi okokwa be ni ibanye eya manchofele mo ya eto gbalo niji Jesus Christ alayhi salatu wa salam no ikenani jiji be wie mo mi na kambe ami akenhale ni ikeba ha adisan ye ko ba ja manchofele ni le ewie mo ni ikeba akashi nno atun akaja manchofele ni ketun no be de manchofele oja emeto akashikaji gbalo Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam manchofele ngale gbeto mo kan hawo kan hale manchofele jamo ni wo ka akashi won dile ye ni be dabi enye eyi emu ewo wala ilaha illa allah ko mo ni wo ba han ye emu ye wo tui amli ke ye emu ye wo tui amli ye be akwashi edwe ni eteyese ko pe fata ye be eyi emu ke manchofele jamo.
Talking about salat, you can't come into the prayer without going through purification. So we have to purify ourselves, having purified our hearts with La ilaha illallah. So before you come into the prayer also, you go to the lavatory if you want to pass water, you clean yourself, and then you go to the place of ablution, you perform the ablution before coming into the prayer. When you come into the prayer, you observe the prayer behind the imam. Aside of this Friday prayer that is taking our time, if we look at the 5 daily prayer we observe every other day, I think 20 minutes is always okay for us. If you get to the mosque premises, and that's where you are going to ease yourself, from easing yourself, performing the ablution, standing behind the imam and observing the prayer, maybe 20 minutes is always okay for us. So if we have 20 minutes in 5 places, it will give us how many minutes? 100 minutes. And 100 minutes will give us 1 hour 40 minutes. Let's even see, let it run up to 2 hours. Out of 24 hours that your creator gave you, he has asked you to only give 2 hours. Come into his presence with 2 hours. That is even at most. In some cases, maybe an hour will even be okay for us to observe our daily prayers. But then we have people who have difficulties giving these 2 or less than 2 hours to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has given you 24 and is asking you to only give less than 2 hours. But some of us are very sluggish, some of us are very reluctant, some of us don't even have the time. What we do is we procrastinate the period of the prayer. And what Allah wants of us is those prayers that He asks us to observe, He timed them. We have the one called Salatul Subhi. It must be observed at the Subhi period. We have the one called Salatul Zuhr. It must be observed at the Zuhr period. We have the one called Asri. It must be observed at the Asri period. And the one called Maghrib must be observed at its prescribed time. Then also Isha, that must be observed at its prescribed time. Unfortunately, people observe the prayer at their own time, not at the time of Allah.
Be ami ni otella ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah ikakashi ukawa jame taji impalaka sote la ilaha illallah be akwashe jemi baha o la ilaha illallah ayi emuwe be ekomedi solemo ni onya obote solemo mi yabiani ni gbalo ehawo gbeto mo akashi kedo ba sole akasiri lufuemo alosamoyo ohiye ono otobote biye besami oya lori afoforo yi ka ogbena no batasiye oba fe wudu fe mo mi ye agbena oba ba salate mi nikedo fe salate ni ogbena neka wudu fe mo ke no fe mo ake anhabo meet ni man enumo meet ni man enyo neka meet ni man enyo na ni okaba se le kan bi na fe kan ha solimo ni ko ka bina kadu wo kwa nyumba matwa nyumai enyoke ede ni matwa fe le kan ha wo no ni aka ha bo yami e wo de ka meet nyumai enyone kadu wo ko zuhu wo kwa asal wo kwa magri ishai ke fajiri ye be ko wo bu akuta fe be wo bana meet oha ni neka meet oha na iba ha wo ngbeto akobe ke meet nyumai ede emeni pe ni jino ni ubana ni emeni ye be neka ngbeto enyo na ni okaba soli ni ko ga die man to feel ye ni ko me wo don bo wo mi ye di ni wo bo mo bi aka wo bo ku ye ni ko me salata de nche wo chi o bi ye wo to ni ko me ka yi ma me so le de nche wo nsa aka chi yi ma me fe mo la kutu ni wo nya ni wo bina enne me fe eton aka chi man to feel meat alone number mmeta enyoke na eke ha wo ye mmeta numan enyoke ejo eniye wo adesampo wo here so be ton akese wo be noniji manche ofile ehe nishe oduba ake noni poni ake ha wo.
Allahu Akbar. So the time that Allah has asked us to observe the prayer is not time consumed. It doesn't consume our time at all. Allah did not ask us out of the 24 hours to give half. He didn't ask us to give even a quarter of it. Only 2 hours. In some cases, I can even say 5 minutes prayer behind an imam. Take 5 minutes prayer wudu, or 3 minutes prayer wudu, come behind the imam 7 minutes. The prayer is through. So if the prayer is through within 10 minutes, we are talking about 15 minutes, that is even less than an hour of compressing all the time that Allah wants you to be in His presence. But then of all this, some people are very reluctant to observe the worship. Not only being reluctant, but the knowledge that goes into the prayer. There are those who were born into Islam. I'm not talking about those who recently embraced Islam, but they don't even know how to perform ablution. Let alone come into the prayer and go into the nitty-gritty of what is Kabli and Badi. This is a very serious problem. Something you have been observing years, ever since you were born, you have been observing it. But you have not taken the pace because you don't appreciate what you are even doing. You don't even have the time to even ask these kind of details in your prayer. So it's very unfortunate some of the behaviors we put forward. But what we are saying in essence, or the theme of this khutbah, is to tell us that Islam is very simple. Allah has given us 24 hours, and the time He asked us to come to within His presence is very short, not very much, not cumbersome, not burdensome, very, very simple. So it is simple for us to observe. Allah has not made it too burdensome, because He said He has not placed on the soul that which is beyond its capacity. So observing the prayer behind the Imam in a day is not burdensome at all.
Hejele bẹ̀rẹ̀ bóyá jẹ̀rùbù àbúta. Èyí wọ́n Muslim ṣe jẹ́ yẹn sọ̀rọ̀ ṣe é nù mọ̀sán gbogbo mi. Ṣe é nù mọ̀sán gbogbo mi àníkẹ́dù wọ̀ yàtọ̀ sí lédi ẹwọ́ dọ̀mọ̀ sí àwọn òmìnir náà. Tọ́pọ̀ tẹ̀yẹ ìmáàmù sẹ̀ kódé ẹ̀jẹ̀ ẹwọ́ ní ìtì ìyùnmá. Wọ́n ìtà àwọn ẹ̀ ní ìtì ìyùnmá. Ẹlẹ́nu wọ̀ ní ènìyàn lọ́ọ̀kà kẹ́ṣe tẹ́jú wọ̀ pọ́n nìkẹ́ bèèlì màtọ̀fẹ́lẹ̀ ẹ̀kẹ́ ha wọ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ màtọ̀fẹ́lẹ̀ ẹ̀dẹ́pọ̀ bèèbí ìyóòpó kẹ́jẹ́ kò wọ̀lẹ̀ ajakẹ́sí tẹ́jú wọ̀ pọ́n mọ̀ẹ̀tọ̀ ànúmáì ènìyàn kẹ́ ẹ̀jẹ̀ ní ẹ̀kẹ́ ha wọ̀ èyí mọ̀ẹ̀tọ̀ ènìyàn pẹ́ wọ̀yọ̀ ní nìkẹ́ mọ̀ẹ̀tọ̀ ènìyàn náà ní wọ̀yọ̀ náà ìkàkẹ́sí bèèbí yíyẹ wọ̀dọ́ǹkọ̀ wọ̀mí ni wọ́n hàn ní máàmù sọ́lẹ́mọ́lẹ̀ pìtìópìtìó ní wọ́n fẹ́ ní wọ́n ya kàn án sọ̀lẹ́mọ́ ọ̀sẹ̀ ẹ̀jẹ̀ bèbí yẹ wọ́n yí ọwọ́ mi ní ìkẹ́ ẹ̀nà fẹ́ mọ́ fẹ́ẹ́sẹ̀ tọ́jú ìbàlá àgbẹ̀ṣe gbogbo àáfẹ́ kẹ́jẹ̀ tù í nìyẹn lọ nílẹ̀ fi ọ̀dí ògbú àsọ̀lẹ́mọ́ fẹ́ẹ́ nà gbẹ́kẹ̀ kẹ́jẹ̀ ìyàwó yàmì ní ìtàṣí ní ìwọ̀ kẹ́rin sọ̀lẹ̀ fíofíò kẹ́wọ̀ fíò kẹ́sọ̀lẹ̀ fíò kẹ́rin ìyàwó nìkan ní ẹ̀fà náà kẹ́ṣe ó wọ̀ fún òwò 8 hours òkèwọ̀ over 5 hours di over 8 hours yàtún wọn ní 2 hours ẹ̀fẹ́ ní òkèjá màntọ̀fílẹ̀ òkè màntọ̀fílẹ̀ ǹgbọ́nà màntọ̀fílẹ̀ kàkẹ́ṣe ike haumọ̀ alónọ́lì tí owó abẹ́ ní ìkẹtẹ̀lẹ̀ ìyàn wọ́n ní ìkẹ́ hapù ẹ̀ náà ní olùwalẹ̀ bàánà nìyẹn ẹ̀mẹ́fẹ́ ẹ̀sẹ̀ wọ́n gbígbí ọwọ́ mi akẹ́ṣe wọ́n kà sí jámọ́ mi ní wọ́n lè ewu ẹ̀kàbílì alóbàádì ẹ̀nà súnà ẹ̀nà fẹ̀rẹ̀là nọ́níyọ̀mù ẹ̀nà nọ́níyọ̀mù wọ́n kà sí jámọ́ ọ̀hún ní ẹ̀nà ọ̀kẹ́ máa ṣe kẹ́kẹ́ wọ̀ fẹ́ nàkànyẹ wọ́n fẹ́ kó jalẹ̀ wọ́n hapùtọ̀ fílẹ̀ wọ́n mú òun táwọn ní gbogbo olè ẹ̀ gbogbo bá mi ní gbogbo ó bá kà sí wọ́n ní àtọwọ̀ orí ọ̀rẹ́ ìwà àgbẹ̀ ìsìlámẹ̀ ẹ̀yẹ mìíràn ìwà àkùrà.
Now we have now examined the second of the pillars. We look at the third one talking about zakat. Zakah also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not placed it as a burden on every Muslim. Those Muslims who have the means are the ones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has imposed that upon them. If you are into agriculture, then by the time what you have cultivated has reached a certain amount, then you give zakat on it. If it is rain fed, you give a tenth of it. If it is not rain fed, then you give 1/20 of it. Maybe it is through irrigation, you have fixed your pipes and then you source your water from the source to water them, you give 1/20 of it. However, if it is rain fed, it is 1/10 of that very quantity, not just anything that you harvested. There is a particular amount that has to do with someone who is into agriculture. And it's not just any agricultural product. It has to do with grains and also maybe dates, as mentioned in the Sharia. Then, if also it has to do with someone who is into a business, you are into a business and maybe your capital at the start of the business is up to the threshold required of the Sharia. Then when you have the required threshold, the Sharia has not imposed anything on you. That very threshold must mature over a period of a year. So if you started a business with a capital in the region of, say, let's say 40,000 or 45,000 today, because the city is really undergoing serious challenges with the dollar. So we're talking about maybe in the region of 45,000. If you started a business with that, and then in the next 1 year, the business is progressing, then you give what Allah wants from you. It's not half of that money. It's not a quarter of that money. It's not a tenth of that money, but to 2.5. And that 2.5 is not to be paid every month. It's not to be paid every 2 months, or 3 months, or 6 months. You have to only pay that 2.5% in a year. So what is burdensome about this? What is difficult in this? The person that has blessed you so much is asking for only 2.5% of what he has blessed you with. And he's not asking you to give him on a monthly basis. He's not asking you to give him on a quarterly basis. He's not asking you to give him on every 6 months. He said until it is 1 year. Then give me 2.5% of what I have blessed you with. But some Muslims are niggardly disposed, so they will never give that money. Well,
Yabia ne wonye ne loyi. Akaja tuetele woyi, ikeja chuko tele pomoku. Taju wo